Alright, hello everybody. Here comes a review of our discussion of efficiency of competitive markets. And the starting point is to talk about marginal benefit, and then we'll talk about marginal cost. So marginal benefit, or MB, what is that? Well, it's the benefit that people receive from consuming one more unit of a good. So it's the benefit that people receive from consuming, not producing, but consuming one more or one extra unit of a good or maybe service. So the key thing here is one more or one extra unit of a good. So we're not talking about total. So it's very important to understand the difference between marginal benefit versus total benefit. So total benefit is TB is total benefit. So what's the difference between marginal benefit and total benefit, and how they are related? Well, technically speaking, marginal benefit is a change in total benefit over change in quantity. So marginal benefit tells us by how much our total benefit, overall benefit, changes when we increase consumption by a certain amount. So in the simplest case, by how much it changes when we change our consumption by 1 unit. So for example, marginal benefit of adding, let's say, the fifth unit is equal to a change between having total benefit when you're consuming 5 units minus total benefit you have when consuming 4 units, divided by 5 minus 4, which is just 1. So this is total benefit that we enjoy overall when having 5 those units, right? This is what we had before we added the 5th unit. In other words, when we had just 4 units. Of course, the more usually means better, right? So as you're increasing consumption, your benefit goes up. So usually we expect marginal benefit to be positive. You can also go the other way around and figure out total benefit of certain amount of units you consume as the sum of all marginal benefits that you get when consuming 1 unit after another. So total benefit of n units will be the sum of marginal benefit you get from the first unit plus marginal benefit of the second unit, and then so on and so forth up to unit n. So MB, marginal benefit of unit n. So for example, if you have like 3 slices of pizza, your overall benefit will be marginal benefit of the first unit, marginal benefit of the second unit, marginal benefit of the third unit. When you add them up, you get your overall benefit or joy from consuming 3 slices of pizza. So one very important quality of marginal benefit. Marginal benefit decreases. So marginal benefit goes down or decreases as you consume more of stuff. Decreases as we or you consume more. And it makes sense if you think about it. So usually the first unit is the most precious, right? We appreciate it the most. If you didn't have anything and then you get something, well, that feels good, right? But as you consume more and more, you're kind of filling up, right? So you don't feel as good with each additional unit. You still feel good, but not as good. All right. So very important thing to understand that MB decreasing doesn't mean that your total benefit is going down. So marginal benefit goes down along with quantity. It's important to remember we're talking about quantity, right? So you having more stuff, and with each additional unit, marginal benefit goes down. So Q goes up, and as a result, marginal benefit goes down, but total benefit is going up. Why it's going up? Well, because if you look back at the previous formula, this one, you can see that again, as long as these numbers are positive, no matter how large or small they are, as you keep adding them up, right, the overall number here is growing. So that's one very important observation. I understand it's kind of a challenge for people, because when they think about marginal benefit, and they kind of, if they don't clearly understand the difference between marginal benefit versus total benefit, they kind of tend to think about total benefit, and for them it doesn't make sense. How come, you know, you consume more and your total benefit is going down? So it's not your total benefit that is going down. It's not this thing that's going down. That's this thing that's going down. All right. So we can actually illustrate it with two diagrams to see the relationship. I'll try to be very quick. Just brief sketch. So if on the upper diagram we'll show total benefit, and actually so lower diagram will be marginal benefit, high diagram will be total benefit. So simply put, that's how we expect marginal benefit to look like. It's going down. Meanwhile, total benefit is going up. So you can see that total benefit is growing, but it's not growing like proportionally. And actually there is a very important point here. You see this one? This point connects to the diagram here. So as I'm drawing this total benefit curve, I want to make sure that it actually gets to its maximum exactly against this point where marginal benefit curve intersects the horizontal axis. Because it's a very important connection. All right, so basically, as you increasing consumption of good, whatever good we're looking here, right? Q. So Q is quantity. As you increasing consumption, so having more of stuff, each additional unit benefits you, right? But its benefit from each unit goes down. So the first slice of pizza feels the best, the second one still feels good, but it doesn't feel as good, and the third one still feels good, but not as good as the previous one. And that again pretty much shows as a downward sloping curve that shows that yeah, you're enjoying each additional unit, but yeah, the kind of degree of level of satisfaction you get from each additional unit is dropping. All right, so you're filling up, right? So if you go to a restaurant and you have pizza, each additional slice feels good, but not as good as you eat more of it. All right, and as these marginal benefits kind of add up, right, your total benefit gets larger and larger, so it grows, right, because you're eating more, so you're feeling better. But you can see that this total benefit curve is growing at this like decreasing scale, so it's kind of leveling out. Would be really nice if it would just grow, you know, like linear with no delays, and so would take us in the infinity. But the reality is, yeah, I mean, whatever you do, you usually get tired of it, whether you're eating or playing or whatever you do. And you can see on these diagrams this as the fact that total benefit eventually is going to hit the maximum, which means that marginal benefit will hit zero. So the meaning of marginal benefit hitting zero means like at some point the next unit you will consider to consume will feel like almost nothing, right? You will be like, do I want this slice of pizza or not? Well, I'm not really sure. That basically happens when your marginal benefit of that additional slice of pizza gets down to zero. And that means that you are at the maximum of your total benefit. So if like next slice of pizza doesn't feel like really, you don't feel like having it, it means like you're pretty much all set. You better stop eating. Because if you keep eating more, then you will push marginal benefit of next slice of pizza into the negative zone, right? If you overeat. And that actually will reduce your total benefit down from the possible maximum. Okay? And this is, again, the relationship, graphical relationship between marginal benefit on this diagram and total benefit on this diagram. So the main message here is that marginal benefit going down doesn't mean the total benefit is going down. So again, as long as marginal benefit is positive, then total benefit is growing. Only when marginal benefit becomes negative, like crossing into this area, total benefit starts dropping. All right, very well. I hope this makes sense. Now let's talk about marginal cost. So marginal cost, or MC, is the opportunity cost, generally speaking. Opportunity cost of producing. Now we're talking about production, not consumption. Of producing again one more or one extra unit of a good. All right, so again, we're talking about these incremental changes. So it's not just from one unit, but from one more unit. So we're dealing with a change here. And we actually talked about this stuff, touched this stuff when we talked about PPF, remember? We looked at this bowed out PPF and figured out that it illustrates increasing opportunity cost. Increasing opportunity cost. So if you plot this increasing opportunity cost on a diagram against quantity of whatever good we have here, so Q of X, and then of course we have good Y. So marginal cost of good X will be getting larger as we're increasing production, not consumption, of this good. Okay, so that's how marginal cost behaves, and this is what it means. Next thing is to put them together. And actually, by putting them together, figuring out where is that special point on PPF that we want to be at. Because earlier we couldn't really answer this question. Today, as we're actually adding preferences to our analysis, which is marginal benefit curve, we can answer this question. So which point on PPF, on this PPF curve, is the one we want to be at? And technically, the answer is pretty straightforward. If you plot marginal benefit versus marginal cost, so MC, MB, and actually let me mark it like this, MB and MC, so it's clear where those curves are. Okay, so, and maybe I'll also change the color. So MB, let's make it blue. And so this thing also will be blue. And let's make this guy red. And same thing here, color red. So now we should be able to clearly see which curve is which. And again, technically, figuring out which point we want to be at on our PPF is just the point that matches this intersection between marginal benefit and marginal cost curves. All right, so if we just draw a line through this point, we will know how much good X to produce, and if we go up, we can actually see this quantity on the upper diagram, and it will allow us to also figure out how much of good Y we want to produce. Actually, we will be producing. I mean, we don't really have choice, because if you pick your X, right, then your Y is given, because this is your PPF tells you how much of good Y you will be producing given the amount of good X. All right, so this is Q X we have here, and the meaning of this point is that at this point we're balancing benefit and cost of consuming and producing good X, and that's the right balance that we have at this point. So this point is basically what we call the point of allocative efficiency. Like standard condition for being at the point of allocative efficiency is this one. So at the point where marginal benefit meets marginal cost, we are achieving the point of allocative efficiency. Now, how does it make sense? Why this equality, means anything? Well, what this equality means is that basically we are producing all units up to this point, right, for which marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. So being at this point, producing at this level of output means that, and actually consuming as well, right, means that we're producing all these units. And what is true for every unit here is that marginal benefit, like for example this particular unit, if you draw a vertical line, you can measure marginal benefit and marginal cost for this particular unit. And as you can see, according to these diagrams, marginal benefit at this point exceeds marginal cost. So this unit is worth being produced because the benefit from consuming it exceeds the cost of making it. All right, and it's true again for every point up to this one. This is the last one where marginal benefit, well, you cannot really say exceeds because exactly at this point it's equal, right? But it's the last unit for which marginal cost does not exceed marginal benefit, because after this point, what happens if you go further, right, and keep producing, then you will get into this zone, and you don't want to be here, because at any point here, for any unit here, marginal cost exceeds marginal benefit. So you don't want to produce any of those units starting from this one. No matter how small the difference is, still marginal cost here exceeds marginal benefit. So that's why you don't want to get into this area when producing and consuming stuff. All right, so that's basically the meaning of this condition. So when you get to the point where marginal benefit meets marginal cost, it means that you produce all units for which marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. So you did the right thing. You made all those units that are worth being produced, but you don't want to go any further. All right, so, and then we can also notice that the difference between marginal benefit and marginal cost, as long as it's twice positive, could be identified as what I would call net marginal benefit. And another way to put this condition is to say that we want to produce all units for which net marginal benefit, which is MB minus SC, is positive. Okay, and one nice thing about this net marginal benefit thing is that you can interpret it to understand next thing on our list, which is total surplus. So when you add all those net marginal benefits for all units you produce up to this point, up to the point of allocative efficiency, you end up having something called total surplus. And that allows us to make a connection of the story to the story of the market equilibrium. So finally, we can talk about efficiency of markets. So to make a connection to the story of market equilibrium, we just need to notice that our good old friend supply curve is nothing but marginal cost, and demand curve is nothing but marginal benefit curve. All right, we'll talk more about this stuff later, so it will make more sense for you why supply curve is basically a marginal cost curve. But at this point, as I don't want to take too much of your time right now for the review, let's just take it for granted. So supply curve is the same as marginal cost, demand curve is the same as marginal benefit. Now, we know that the market equilibrium will be at this point, because this is where quantity demanded meets quantity supplied, right? And this is where we expect market to be. So that happens to be market equilibrium. But because these two curves also work as marginal cost and marginal benefit curves, this point of market equilibrium here also tells us where the point of allocative efficiency is, given this marginal cost and given this marginal benefit of producing and consuming this stuff. So MB meets MC. Given that, we can figure out total surplus as we just did on the previous diagram. So given that this market is producing this quantity, and yes, this is QAE, the point of allocative efficiency. That means we have total surplus of that size. So we're producing all units for which marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. MB, MC. So we want to produce all this quantity and no more, no less. We can also identify consumer surplus and producer surplus. To do that, you just need to split this large triangle for TS into two smaller triangles, just following the market price. So the upper triangle is consumer surplus, and the lower triangle is producer surplus. So this is producer surplus, this is consumer surplus. And finally, let's see what happens if something prevents us to be exactly at the point of allocative efficiency. Simply put, there are two possibilities. You can be either producing too much or too little. Supply, demand, marginal cost, marginal benefit. So if producing, let's say you're producing too little. So instead of being at this level of output, QAE, for some reason the market stops right here. And we'll talk about various reasons that could result in this kind of situation later. So Q1. So what is going on with efficiency if you're stopping at Q1? Well, basically, it means you're not producing these units, which are worth being produced, right? Based on marginal benefit of consuming them and marginal cost of producing them. So we know that if we produced up to QAE, we would have had this much of total surplus. But because we're stopping short from QAE, it means we're failing to grab this surplus. It's out of reach because we are not producing this quantity. This is out of production, right? So that's the surplus lost, and that's what we call deadweight loss from underproduction. Another possibility is if this market goes too far and produces too much of stuff. So let's say up to Q2. So it's not good either, because as I was explaining earlier, if you go beyond this point, right, and start producing in this area, it means you're producing units for which marginal cost exceeds marginal benefit. So you're making units that are not worth being produced. So the area you see in this triangle is a negative total surplus, so to speak. So it's also a deadweight loss, but this is the deadweight loss from overproduction. All right, so and that completes our review of this topic. Thank you for your time. I'll talk to you later.